The whispers started the moment Nari Kim stepped off the transport ship. She could hear them echoing through the massive hangar bay of Station Arcturus 7. Aliens of every shape and size turned to stare at her. Some pointed. Others made sounds she could not understand. But the meaning was clear enough. They had never seen a human here before. Nari kept her eyes forward and her back straight. She had expected this. Earth was new to the Galactic Coalition. Humans were still strangers in this vast community of 43 species. Most of these aliens thought humans were weak. They came from a soft world with gentle gravity. How could they possibly survive military training designed for warriors who grew up on planets where the air was poison and the gravity could crush bones? She found Captain Daeho Park waiting for her near the entrance. He was the human liaison officer, responsible for making sure Earth's representatives did not embarrass themselves. He looked tired. The lines around his eyes were deep and his uniform seemed a size too large, as if he had lost weight from stress. "Lieutenant Kim," he said quietly, "welcome to Arcturus 7. I hope you know what you're getting into." "I volunteered for this, sir," Nari replied. "I know the odds." Park studied her face for a moment. "The odds are not in your favor. No human has completed this training program. Most aliens think we should not even try." "They are watching you, Lieutenant. If you fail, it makes all of us look bad." "Then I will not fail," Nari said simply. The orientation took place in a large auditorium filled with new recruits. Nari sat in the back trying not to draw attention. It did not work. A massive reptilian creature sat down next to her, its scales scraping against the metal seat. It was a Krell, one of the strongest species in the Coalition. The creature looked down at her with yellow eyes. "You are the human," it said. Its voice sounded like grinding rocks. "I am Thorax. I give you 3 days before you quit." Nari did not respond. She had learned long ago that words meant nothing. Only actions mattered. Commander Vektharis stood at the front of the room. He was an older Krell, covered in scars and wearing the marks of 40 years of military service. His voice boomed across the auditorium as he began to speak about the training program. He talked about discipline, sacrifice, and the honor of serving the Coalition. Then he mentioned something that made every recruit sit up straighter. "Some of you have heard of the gravity chamber," Vektharis said. "It is a training facility unlike any other. Inside, we can adjust the gravity from normal levels up to 10 times what you feel now. It was built to push warriors to their absolute limits. 73 soldiers have tried to master the highest levels. All 73 died." A cold silence filled the room. "The chamber has been sealed for 15 years, the commander continued. It is too dangerous. Too many good warriors were lost. But it remains available for supplemental training at lower levels. Any recruit may request access. Most do not. Those who do rarely return for a second session." Nari listened carefully. She was already forming a plan. The first physical assessment happened the next day. All the recruits gathered in a massive training hall. They were tested on strength, speed, endurance, and combat skills. Nari performed adequately. She was not the strongest or the fastest. Compared to aliens who evolved on high-gravity worlds, she seemed almost fragile. Thorax lifted weights that would have crushed her. Other recruits moved with speed she could not match. After the tests, Thorax approached her with several other Krell recruits. They were laughing. "Human," Thorax said loudly, making sure others could hear. "Let us test your strength properly. Arm wrestling." "You and me," a crowd gathered. Nari knew this was a trap. If she refused, they would call her a coward. If she accepted, she would lose badly. She sat down across from Thorax and placed her arm on the table. The match lasted 3 seconds. Thorax slammed her hand down so hard the table cracked. The crowd roared with laughter. Nari stood up, rubbing her arm. She looked at Thorax calmly. "You are stronger than me," she said. "Congratulations." Something in her tone made Thorax stop laughing. There was no anger in her voice. No shame, just a statement of fact. It was somehow more unsettling than if she had gotten angry. That night, Nari sat in her small quarters and studied everything she could find about the gravity chamber. The official records were limited, but she found technical specifications in the station database. The chamber had controls that allowed for very precise adjustments. Most soldiers trained at preset levels, 1.5 times gravity, 2 times gravity, and so on. But the system could be adjusted in tiny increments, 0.1 gravity at a time if needed. She submitted a request to access the chamber for supplemental training. The approval came back within an hour. She suspected Commander Vectharis was curious to see how long the human would last. Her first session began at dawn. The gravity chamber was enormous with smooth metal walls and a high ceiling. Control panels lined one side. Observation windows allowed others to watch from safety. Nari stepped inside and sealed the door. She set the gravity to 1.5 times normal and activated the system. The change was immediate. Her body suddenly weighed half again as much as normal. Every movement required more effort. She tried to do a simple exercise routine, push-ups, squats, running in place. It was brutal. Her muscles screamed. Sweat poured down her face. After 30 minutes, she could barely stand. She stumbled out of the chamber. Several recruits had gathered to watch through the windows. They were laughing and pointing. Nari ignored them. She logged her session time and scheduled another one for the next day. A small alien approached her as she walked away. It was Mora, a Threxian recruit with an insect-like appearance. Its voice was soft and concerned. "You should stop," Mora said. "The chamber has broken stronger beings than you. Many have died thinking they could conquer it." Nari looked at the Threxian. For the first time since arriving at the station, she allowed herself a small smile. "Then I will need to be careful," she said. "I am not trying to conquer it." "Then what are you trying to do?" Mora asked. Nari paused. The answer was complicated, tied to memories she tried not to think about. 12 teammates who had died 3 years ago because they were not strong enough, fast enough, prepared enough. She carried their names with her every day. "I am trying to adapt," she said finally. 3 weeks passed. Every single day, Nari entered the chamber. Sometimes twice. She gradually increased the gravity in tiny steps. 1.6, 1.7, 1.8. Each increase was agony. Each session left her exhausted. But slowly, something was changing. Her body was responding to the stress in ways she had not expected. Commander Vectharis received a notification on his personal terminal. He frowned at the screen. Lieutenant Kim had been accessing the gravity chamber every day for 3 weeks, without missing a single session. He pulled up her training logs and his eyes widened. She was now training at 2.2 times normal gravity. That was a level that would crush most species after prolonged exposure. He had to see this for himself. He walked to the chamber and looked through the observation window. What he saw made him stop breathing for a moment. Inside the chamber, under gravity that should have flattened her, Nari Kim was executing a combat form. Her movements were slow, deliberate, and perfectly controlled. Every strike, every block, every step was precise. Sweat covered her body. Her face showed intense concentration. But she was not struggling. She was working. She finished the form and collapsed to her knees, gasping for air. Vectharis expected her to stop. Instead, she pulled herself to her feet, walked to the control panel, and increased the gravity to 2.3. Then she began again. The rumors spread through Station Arcturus 7 like fire through dry grass. The human was still using the gravity chamber. Every single day, sometimes twice, recruits began gathering at the observation windows during her sessions. What they saw disturbed them more than they wanted to admit. Nari Kim moved under crushing gravity with a precision that seemed impossible. At 2.8 times normal gravity, she practiced combat techniques that would be difficult in regular conditions. But here, under nearly 3 times her normal weight, she executed each movement with careful control. Nothing was wasted. Every punch, every kick, every block used exactly the energy needed and no more. Dr. Yuna Choi watched from the medical observation room with growing fascination. She was a human xenobiologist assigned to the station, studying how different species adapted to the coalition's various environments. Nari's case was becoming extraordinary. Dr. Choi had been secretly monitoring the lieutenant's biometric data, and the results were remarkable. Nari's bone density had increased by 23% in just 2 months. Her muscle fiber composition was changing at the cellular level. Her cardiovascular system was developing new efficiency patterns. These were adaptations that should take years if they happened at all. Dr. Choi had never seen anything like it in her entire career. She found Nari in the medical bay after a particularly intense session. The young lieutenant sat on an examination table, drinking water and breathing hard. Her uniform was soaked with sweat. "Lieutenant Kim, I need to talk to you about your training," Dr. Choi said. Nari looked up. Her dark eyes were calm but tired. "If you are going to tell me to stop, please do not bother," Nari said quietly. I am not here to stop you. I am here to show you what is happening to your body. Dr. Choi pulled up holographic displays showing scans and charts. Your skeleton is restructuring itself. Your heart is developing new efficiency. Your nervous system is adapting to process movement under high gravity. Nari, you are changing at a fundamental level. Is that dangerous? Nari asked. I do not know. No human has ever done this before. These changes might be permanent. You might not be able to return to normal afterward. Nari was quiet for a moment. Then she stood up and headed for the door. Thank you for the information, Doctor. I have another session scheduled in an hour. Commander Vectharis intercepted her in the corridor. The massive Krell blocked her path, his yellow eyes studying her intently. Lieutenant Kim, we need to talk. Sir, I have reviewed your medical data. Dr. Choi has shared her concerns with me. What you are doing is dangerous. You need to stop before you cause permanent damage to yourself. Nari met his gaze without flinching. With respect, Commander, I will not stop. This is not a request, Lieutenant. This is an order from your training commander. Then you will need to officially remove me from the program, sir, because I will continue training whether you approve or not. Vectharis stared at her. In 40 years of military service, very few soldiers had ever directly refused his orders. He could see the determination in her eyes. This was not stubbornness or pride. This was something deeper. Why? He asked. Why are you doing this to yourself? Nari's expression softened slightly. Humans are not the strongest species, Commander. We are not the fastest or the toughest. But we have one advantage. We do not give up. We evolved as persistence hunters. We do not win by being better. We win by refusing to quit. The chamber is just another kind of marathon, and I will finish it. She walked past him toward the chamber. Vectharis watched her go, troubled. He had seen this kind of determination before. It usually ended in death. Captain Daho Park received an urgent communication from Coalition Oversight 3 days later. They were concerned about the humans' extreme training methods. If she died or suffered permanent injury, it would reflect badly on Earth's application for full Coalition membership. They wanted him to remove her from the program immediately. Park found Nari in the station's observation deck, looking out at the stars. She seemed smaller somehow, more fragile than when she had first arrived. But he knew that appearance was deceiving. Lieutenant, we need to talk about your training. I am not stopping, sir. You do not understand the political situation. If you fail, if you die, it gives the Coalition an excuse to question whether humans are ready for full membership. Every species will use you as an example of human recklessness. Nari turned to face him. Her voice was quiet but firm. Do you want humanity respected, sir, or pitied? Park had no answer for that. At 3.5 times normal gravity, Nari began incorporating combat simulations. The chamber had holographic systems that could create virtual enemies. She programmed scenarios based on real combat situations. Other recruits watched in horrified fascination as she fought multiple holographic opponents. While being crushed by gravity, that would have killed most of them. Her fighting style had evolved into something unique. She used the gravity itself as a weapon, letting her enhanced weight add power to strikes. She moved with minimal motion, conserving every bit of energy. When an enemy attacked, she redirected their force rather than blocking directly. It was beautiful and terrifying to watch. Crix, a young Krell recruit and friend of Thorax, could not accept what he was seeing. He believed humans were weak and that Nari's success was some kind of trick. He decided to prove it. One morning, Crix entered the gravity chamber. He set the gravity to 2 times normal, confident that his superior Krell physiology would allow him to perform better than the human. Several recruits gathered to watch. For the first 10 minutes, Crix moved well. His strength was impressive even under doubled gravity, but by the 15th minute he was struggling. His breathing became labored. His movement slowed. At 17 minutes his legs collapsed. Alarms began blaring. His body was shutting down. Medical teams rushed into the chamber and pulled him out. They worked frantically to stabilize him. He survived, but barely. The incident was officially covered up as a training accident, but everyone knew what had happened. The strong Krell warrior had been broken by gravity that the human trained in every day. Nari visited Crix in the medical bay 2 days later. He was recovering but would need weeks of treatment. He looked up at her with something like shame in his eyes. How do you do it? He asked weakly. How do you survive what almost killed me? Nari pulled up a chair and sat down. Her expression was serious but not unkind. You tried to fight the gravity with strength. I do not fight it. I adapt to it. Strength is easy, Crix. You are born with it or you are not. Adaptation is hard. It requires patience, pain, and the willingness to change. Most people are not willing to pay that price. Crix was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. I thought humans were weak. We are weak, Nari said. That is why we learn to adapt. By her 5th month of training, Nari was working at 4.8 times normal gravity. She had been in the chamber for 4 hours straight, a duration that should have been physiologically impossible. Suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the medical center. The sensors monitoring her vital signs showed something unprecedented. Dr. Choi ran to the chamber with her medical team. They overrode the locks and rushed inside, expecting to find Nari collapsed or dying. Instead, they found her standing perfectly still in a meditation pose. Sweat evaporated instantly from her skin in the chamber's heat. Her vital signs were impossibly stable. Nari opened her eyes and looked at them calmly. Is something wrong? She asked. The doctors were speechless. Dr. Choi pulled up the biometric data on her portable device. Her hands began shaking as she read the numbers. Nari's body had adapted so thoroughly that 4.8 times gravity was now her baseline. Her cardiovascular system, her muscles, her very bones had restructured themselves. At normal gravity, she would be dangerously superhuman. Under high gravity, she was just surviving. Commander Vectharis reviewed the data that evening. He sat alone in his office, staring at the reports. A cold realization settled over him. Nari had not been training to survive the chamber. She had been training to live in it. The coalition convened an emergency review exactly 1 week after Dr. Choi's discovery. The meeting room was filled with representatives from multiple species, all gathered to discuss what they called the human situation. Admiral Sethis presided over the proceedings. She was a luminari, an ancient being made of crystalline energy who had witnessed countless species rise and fall over her long lifetime. Medical experts presented their findings. Nari Kim's adaptations were unprecedented in coalition medical history. Some argued that she should be studied in controlled conditions. Others insisted that she should be removed from military service because her modifications made her unpredictable. A few suggested that her training methods should be banned entirely to prevent other species from attempting similar transformations. Nari sat through it all in silence. She wore her dress uniform and kept her expression neutral. They were talking about her as if she were not in the room, as if she were a problem to be solved rather than a person. During a break, Commander Vectharis requested a private meeting with Admiral Sethis. They stood in a small conference room overlooking the training facilities. Admiral, with respect, the coalition is afraid. Explain, the Admiral said. Her voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. We are not afraid of Lieutenant Kim failing. We are afraid of her succeeding. If a single human can adapt to conditions that kill warriors from 43 species, what does that say about humanity's potential? It threatens the balance we have carefully maintained. Admiral Sethis was quiet for a long moment. Her crystalline form shifted colors slowly. You are correct, Commander. Humanity is too adaptable, too stubborn, too willing to break themselves to achieve their goals. Such a species could destabilize everything we have built. That is precisely why we must handle this situation carefully. The review session resumed. Then a human woman entered the room. She was Lieutenant Jiwon Lee, a combat psychologist sent from Earth specifically to evaluate Nari. She had been Nari's roommate at the military academy years ago. If anyone could see through Nari's controlled exterior, it would be Jiwon. Jiwon insisted on conducting her evaluation inside the gravity chamber itself. Against protocol, Admiral Sethis approved the request. The two women entered the chamber together. Jiwon watched through protective equipment as Nari demonstrated her abilities at 5.4 times normal gravity. What Jiwon saw was disturbing. Nari moved with mechanical precision, every action calculated and controlled. There was no wasted energy, no unnecessary movement. She did not fight like a human. She fought like something that had evolved in high gravity. The transformation was not just physical, it was psychological. After the demonstration, they sat in a private room. Jiwon studied her old friend's face. Nari looked tired but determined. Always determined. I need to ask you something, Nari. What are you running from? For the first time since arriving at the station, Nari's controlled expression cracked. Her eyes grew distant. You remember the Kepler 442 mission? Jiwan nodded slowly. Everyone in Earth's military knew about Kepler 442. It was humanity's first contact mission with an unknown alien species. The mission had gone wrong. Badly wrong. 12 humans went to that planet, Nari said quietly. I was the only one who came back. They died because we were not strong enough, not fast enough, not prepared enough for what we found there. I carry their names with me, G1, every single day. That was not your fault, G1 said gently. Maybe not. But I survived when they did not. So I need to prove that humans are not inferior. That those 12 did not die because our species is weak. Do you understand? This is not just about me. It is about every human who will come after me. Jiwan saw the truth then. Nari was not training to prove humanity's worth to the Coalition. She was training to prove it to herself, to the ghosts of 12 teammates who died while she lived. Later that evening, Mora visited Nari in her quarters. The Threxian had become something like a friend over the months. Mora sat on the edge of the bed while Nari prepared her training gear for the next session. I heard about the review session, Mora said. There are rumors that the Coalition might forbid you from continuing your training. Nari did not look up from her preparations. Then I will find another way. What does that mean? It means I will not stop, Mora. I cannot stop. Not until I know I have done everything possible to honor the people I lost. Mora realized with growing alarm that Nari was not talking about training anymore. This was about atonement, about transforming herself so completely that she could carry the weight of 12 deaths on her shoulders. The Coalition delivered its verdict 3 days later. Nari stood at attention while Admiral Sethis read the decision. Lieutenant Kim, after careful consideration, the Coalition has decided to allow you to continue your training under strict conditions. You may not exceed 5.5 times normal gravity. Your session duration must be reduced by 30%. You will undergo weekly psychological evaluations. Failure to comply with any of these conditions will result in immediate removal from the program. Nari's expression did not change. I understand, Admiral. Captain Park was relieved. Commander Vectharis was skeptical. That night, the commander checked the chamber logs. Nari had already scheduled a session for dawn. When he arrived to observe, she was training at exactly 5.5 times gravity, the maximum allowed. She was following the letter of the law while pushing to its absolute limit. He watched her through the observation window. She moved through combat forms with the same mechanical precision. But there was something different now. She seemed more focused, more determined, as if the restrictions had only strengthened her resolve. 6 more months passed. Nari trained every day at exactly 5.5 times gravity for exactly the allowed duration. She never exceeded the limits. She never missed a psychological evaluation. She followed every rule perfectly, and her body continued to adapt. She moved now with a grace that seemed impossible. Her reflexes had become enhanced. Her strength under gravity was phenomenal. Dr. Choi's reports showed that Nari's cardiovascular efficiency had reached levels that defied medical understanding. She was becoming something new, something unprecedented. Then everything changed. A distress call came through the station's command center. A Coalition patrol had been ambushed by Void Reavers on a high-gravity moon. The moon's surface gravity was 6.2 times normal. The patrol was trapped. 9 soldiers were still alive, but they were dying. The high gravity was crushing them slowly. The Coalition's elite rescue teams could not deploy. None of them could survive in 6.2 times gravity long enough to complete a rescue operation. They needed someone who could operate in extreme gravity. Someone who had trained for exactly this kind of situation. The command center fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the human lieutenant who had spent a year transforming herself in the gravity chamber. Admiral Sethis asked the question that everyone was thinking. Lieutenant Kim, can you fight at 6? 0.2 times normal gravity? Nari stood perfectly straight. Her voice was cold and certain. Make it 7 times gravity, Admiral, and I will show you what a human can do. The room erupted into chaos. Medical officers protested. Tactical advisors argued about the risks. But Admiral Sethis raised a hand for silence. She studied Nari's face for a long moment. Prepare for deployment, the Admiral said finally. Lieutenant Kim, you have 6 hours to save those soldiers. Do not make me regret this decision. Nari saluted sharply. I will not fail them, Admiral. That is a promise. As she left to prepare for deployment, Vectharis watched her go. He had trained thousands of soldiers over his long career, but he had never seen anyone like Nari Kim. She was not the strongest warrior. She was not the fastest or the most skilled, but she was the most determined person he had ever met. And sometimes he realized determination was the most dangerous quality of all. The coalition scrambled to prepare Nari for deployment. She had never served in actual combat with her adapted physiology. Everything she had done was in the controlled environment of the gravity chamber. This would be different. This would be real. Dr. Choi ran final medical scans in the preparation bay. What she discovered made her pause. Nari's body was now so efficient under high gravity that returning to normal gravity would cause physiological shock. Her cardiovascular system had adapted to work harder. Her sense of balance had recalibrated. She would need gradual decompression when she returned, just like a deep-sea diver coming up from the ocean depths. Nari, do you understand what this means? Dr. Choi asked. You might not be able to return to normal gravity easily. Your body has changed too much. Nari pulled on her combat armor, specially modified to function in extreme gravity. I understand, Doctor, but 9 soldiers are dying. That is all that matters right now. Commander Vectharis insisted on briefing her personally. They stood in the tactical room looking at holographic displays of the moon where the patrol was trapped. The moon was a barren rock orbiting a gas giant. Its surface was scarred with deep ravines and jagged rock formations. The gravity was 6.2 times normal. The Void Reavers are brutal and cunning, Vectharis explained. They chose this moon specifically because coalition forces cannot fight effectively there. The ambushed patrol had 18 soldiers. Sensors show 9 life signs remaining. They are fading fast. You have a 6-hour window before the gravity kills them. He turned to face her directly. You will be dropped alone. No one else can survive the insertion. No backup. No extraction if you fail. Are you certain about this? I am certain, Commander. What weapons will work in that gravity? They equipped her with specialized weapons designed for high-gravity environments. Dense materials that would not be thrown off by the crushing weight. Close-range weapons because projectiles would have unusual trajectories. Everything was heavier, deadlier, and harder to use. Commander Taemin Huang would command the extraction ship, the UES Indomitable. He was a weathered veteran with 52 years of experience. He met Nari in the hangar bay before deployment. His eyes studied her carefully. I have seen a lot in my career, Lieutenant, but I have never seen anything like what you are attempting. Come back alive. That is an order. Yes, sir, Nari said. The deployment was harrowing. Nari rode in a specialized drop pod built to withstand the extreme gravity. The pod's armor was thick, reinforced with materials designed for planetary entry. She sat in the acceleration couch and felt the pod detach from the Indomitable. The descent began. As the pod entered the moon's gravity well, she felt the pressure increase. 2 times gravity, 3 times, 4 times. Her specially designed suit compensated as much as possible, but she could feel the weight pressing down on her. 5 times, 6 times, 6.2 times normal gravity. The pod hit the surface hard. Warning lights flashed. The door blasted open. Nari stepped out onto the moon's surface for the first time. The weight hit her immediately. She was wearing armor and equipment that together weighed nearly as much as she did. Under 6.2 times gravity, it felt crushing. Thousands of coalition observers watched through her helmet camera. They watched her vital signs on their displays. Everyone held their breath. For a moment, Nari staggered. The gravity was more intense than anything she had experienced in the chamber. Her training had brought her to 5.5 times gravity. This was more. But then she steadied. She tested her movement, adjusting her stance and balance. She took a few experimental steps. Her body was compensating, adapting even now to the new conditions. She nodded inside her helmet. Gravity acknowledged. She said calmly into her radio. Beginning search and rescue operation. She moved across the barren landscape with surprising efficiency. The Void Reavers had evolved in a 4 times gravity environment. They were struggling with 6.2 times gravity themselves, but less than most coalition species would. They had set up defensive positions around the trapped patrol. Nari found the first 3 survivors pinned down in a deep ravine. Void Reaver guards watched the position from above. She counted 12 enemies. Under normal circumstances, 12 against 1 would be suicidal. But these were not normal circumstances. She engaged them from an elevated position. The first Void Reaver never saw her coming. She dropped on it from above, using the gravity to add devastating force to her attack. Her weapon, designed for high-gravity combat, punched through its armor. The creature collapsed. The other 11 turned to face her. What happened next would be studied by military academies for decades. Nari fought in a way that seemed impossible. She used the gravity itself as a weapon. When she fell, she turned it into an attack. When she struck, the crushing weight added power that no normal human could generate. She moved with minimal motion, conserving energy, making every action count. The Void Reavers were stronger than her, but they fought against the gravity. She fought with it. They tried to overpower her. She outlasted them. One by one they fell, some from her weapons, some from exhaustion as the gravity crushed them down. After 8 minutes of combat, all 12 were down. Nari climbed down to the trapped soldiers. 3 Threxians, barely conscious, looked up at her in disbelief. One of them was Kael, a veteran who had fought in 20 campaigns. You are human," he gasped. "How are you? Moving?" "I trained for this," Nari said simply. She began moving them toward the extraction point, carrying equipment and helping them walk. She found 3 more survivors in a crashed transport, then 2 more near a defensive position. With each rescue, she had to fight through more Void Reavers. Each battle was watched by thousands across the Coalition fleet. The footage was remarkable. A single human soldier, moving through gravity that would kill most species, fighting enemies designed for high-gravity combat. The final confrontation came near the extraction zone. The Void Reaver commander was a massive creature, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in bio-armor designed for exactly this kind of environment. It stood between Nari and the survivors she had gathered. It spoke in broken Coalition common, its voice grinding and harsh. "Human. Weak flesh. You die now." The fight lasted 12 minutes. The Reaver commander was incredibly strong and experienced, but Nari did not try to match its strength. She outlasted it. Every movement it made cost energy. Every attack it launched required effort that the crushing gravity made expensive. Nari moved minimally, defended efficiently, and waited. When the Reaver commander finally began to slow, its movements becoming sluggish as fatigue set in, Nari struck. A precise series of attacks targeting weak points in its armor. The creature collapsed. Nari stood over it, breathing hard but still operational. She delivered the final blow and continued to the extraction zone. All 9 survivors were loaded onto the extraction shuttle. Nari was the last to board. As the shuttle lifted off, she allowed herself to sit down. The mission had taken 4 hours and 37 minutes. She had saved all 9 soldiers. She had eliminated over 30 Void Reavers. She had done the impossible. The shuttle docked with the Indomitable. Medical teams stood ready. When the doors opened and Nari tried to stand, she collapsed. Her body, adapted for 6.2 times gravity, could not handle the sudden change back to 1 times gravity. It was like being in freefall. Her cardiovascular system, her inner ear, her very muscles were confused. Dr. Choi and her team rushed to stabilize Nari. They worked frantically, adjusting her physiology, trying to prevent shock. It took 18 hours of intensive care. They had to place her in a special chamber that slowly reduced artificial gravity from 3 times normal down to 1 times normal over several days. Her body needed time to readjust. When Nari finally regained consciousness, she was in a medical chamber maintained at 2.5 times gravity. Dr. Choi sat beside her, looking exhausted and worried. "The mission was successful," Dr. Choi said quietly. "All 9 survivors will recover. You are a hero across the entire coalition. But Nari, there is a problem." "What problem?" Nari asked. "Your body has adapted so completely to high gravity that you cannot easily exist in normal gravity anymore. You will need to spend weeks in decompression therapy, and even then, you may never be comfortable at 1 times gravity again. You have essentially exiled yourself from normal human habitation." Nari was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke. "Was the cost worth it, Doctor?" Dr. Choi thought about the 9 soldiers in the recovery ward, about the families who would see their loved ones again, about the footage of a human soldier fighting in conditions that should have killed her. "That is not for me to answer," Dr. Choi said gently. "Then I will answer it," Nari said. "Yes, it was worth it." The rescue operation made Nari a legend. Footage of her fighting 12 Void Reavers under 6.2 times gravity became the most watched combat recording in Coalition history. Her calm voice on the radio, her precise movements, her refusal to quit even when fighting a commander twice her size. Everyone saw it. Everyone talked about it. But the success created an unexpected problem. 17 species formally requested access to the gravity chamber to develop similar capabilities. If one human could adapt to extreme gravity, they reasoned, surely their own warriors could do the same with proper training. Nari completed her decompression therapy over 6 weeks. She learned to move in normal gravity again, but it felt wrong. Too light, too easy. She felt like she might float away at any moment. She could function at 1 times gravity, but she was never comfortable. Her body wanted the weight. It craved the pressure. Dr. Choi explained the situation to her one morning in the medical bay. "Your body has been permanently altered, Nari. You can adapt back to lower gravity with time, or you can choose to live in higher gravity environments. But you will never be the same as before. You have transformed yourself at a fundamental level." Nari accepted this without complaint. She had known the risks. She had chosen this path deliberately. The Coalition announced the Gravity Training Initiative. It was framed as scientific research, but everyone knew it was political theater. If other species could match human adaptation, humanity's leverage disappeared. If they could not, it proved human exceptionalism, which could fracture the Coalition's careful balance of power. Nari was brought before a special session to demonstrate her capabilities. Representatives from 17 species watched as she entered the gravity chamber, set to 7 times normal gravity. This was the level she had promised Admiral Sethis. This was beyond anything she had trained at before the deployment, but her body had continued adapting during the mission and recovery. 7 times gravity was challenging but manageable. She executed combat forms, tactical maneuvers, and rescue simulations that would be difficult at 1 times gravity. Under 7 times gravity, they should have been impossible. But Nari made them look routine. When she exited the chamber, a massive Krell warrior stood and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I am Champion Thurak. I've won 73 combat tournaments. This proves nothing. Give me 3 months in that chamber and I will match her performance." The challenge was accepted. The Gravity Training Initiative officially began. Dr. Hana Lim arrived from Earth to present the science behind human adaptation. She was a sports medicine specialist who had studied extreme athletic training for 20 years. She stood before a packed auditorium and explained humanity's unique evolutionary history. "Humans evolved as persistence hunters," she explained. "We are not fast sprinters. We are marathon runners. Our cooling system is more efficient than almost any species in the Coalition. Our ability to adapt to stress is remarkable. Our neuroplasticity allows us to rewire our brains and bodies in response to extreme conditions." Lieutenant Kim did not conquer the chamber through strength. She conquered it through adaptation. She showed comparative scans, Nari's physiology versus baseline humans versus other Coalition species. The conclusion was uncomfortable for many. Humans were not stronger, faster, or tougher than most species. They were just impossibly stubborn and adaptable. 12 volunteers from 8 species began modified training programs. Commander Vectharis supervised personally, deeply concerned about what might happen. Within 2 weeks, 5 volunteers dropped out with severe injuries. 3 more were medically disqualified. The remaining 4 pushed forward stubbornly. They reached 2.5 times gravity. Their progress was impressive by normal standards. But compared to Nari, who had reached 5.5 times gravity in her first 6 months, they were struggling. Nari visited them in the chamber one day. She watched them train and felt disturbed by what she saw. They were trying to power through with pure strength. They were treating the gravity as an enemy to overcome. They did not understand. She spoke to them afterward in the recovery area. You are fighting the gravity. That is your mistake. You cannot fight it. You can only adapt to it. One of them, a Threxian named Vix, asked the obvious question, then how do we adapt? Nari realized something troubling. She could not teach what she did because she did not fully understand it herself. Her adaptation had been as much psychological as physical. She had transformed herself through sheer determination and willingness to suffer. That could not be taught. It could only be chosen. Champion Thurak refused to quit even as his body began breaking down at 3.2 times gravity. He saw this as a test of will, a warrior's challenge. He trained harder, pushed longer, and ignored the medical warnings. Nari confronted him directly one day outside the chamber. Champion Thurak, you need to stop. The massive Krell looked down at her with barely concealed contempt. You do not tell me when to stop. Human, this is not about strength, Nari said quietly. You are treating the chamber like an enemy. It is not, it is a mirror. It shows you exactly what you are. And right now it is showing you that you are not ready. Thurak dismissed her words as human weakness and returned to training. 3 days later, at 3.5 times gravity, his internal organs began failing. Medical teams saved his life, but his military career was over. The damage was permanent. The Gravity Training Initiative was quietly ended 2 weeks later. Of the 12 volunteers, none had surpassed 3 times gravity. Several suffered permanent injuries. The coalition admitted unofficially that human adaptation could not be easily replicated. This should have been a victory for humanity. Instead, Ambassador Minho Song delivered devastating news to Nari in a private meeting. He was a senior diplomat who had spent decades navigating coalition politics. His expression was grave. Lieutenant Kim, the Coalition Council has voted to classify you as a strategic asset rather than a soldier. You are too valuable, too unique. They are assigning you to a research facility where your physiology can be studied. You will never serve in combat again. You will never return to Earth. Nari listened to this in her habitat module, which was maintained at 3 times gravity so she could live comfortably. She sat perfectly still for a long moment. So I proved humanity's worth by sacrificing my freedom. She said finally, I became a specimen to study instead of a soldier to respect. I am sorry, Ambassador Song said. But this is the political reality. The council will not change their decision. Ambassador, you are asking the wrong question. What do you mean? Nari stood up and walked to the viewport. She looked out at the station at the gravity chamber in the distance. You want to know if I will comply, but what you should be asking is what I will do if you try to make me. The ambassador felt a chill run through him. Before he could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Security alerts flashed on every terminal. Someone had locked down the gravity chamber from inside and was increasing the gravity to dangerous levels. Ambassador Song pulled up the security feed on his personal device. Through the observation window, he could see Nari Kim standing calmly at the center of the chamber. The gravity reading showed 10 times normal, the lethal maximum. Under that pressure, she should be dead within minutes, but she was standing perfectly straight with her arms at her sides. Her vital signs showed stress but were stabilizing. She was adapting even now to gravity, that no being in coalition history had survived. Her voice came over the communication system, calm and steady. If I am a strategic asset, then you better start treating me like a soldier instead of a lab specimen.
I am done proving myself.
Now I am negotiating. And I suggest you negotiate quickly, because I can survive 10 times gravity longer than you might think. Ambassador Song stared at the screen in shock. The human who had spent a year transforming herself in the gravity chamber had just taken the most powerful tool in the coalition's arsenal and turned it into her negotiating position. She was not asking for permission anymore. She was demanding respect. And standing there under crushing gravity that should kill her, she had all the leverage she needed.